According to recent reports by CNBC, the executives at Warner Bros. Are thinking of changing Warner Bros. Discovery's streaming service, HBO Max's name. Not just that, but Steven Spielberg has some words against the strategies that HBO Max is using nowadays. Are streaming services killing the love for quality films that audiences all over the globe once had? Let's dive deeper into it, starting with HBO Max's rebranding. Discovery is almost ready to change up its streaming service HBO Max and give it an entirely new name. Currently, they will likely just call it Max. However, the company's senior executives are still thinking up a nice new name and may change it. Currently, the company's legal team is also vetting names, of which Max is on the top, though internally, reports have said they've been referring to the new streaming platform as Beam. We've also got the news that the rebranded version of the streaming service will have a completely new user interface, with each of Warner Bros. Discovery's brands having their tiles, similar to how Disney Plus lays theirs out. This means that DC Comics, HBO, Discovery, and Warner Bros. Will have separate landing hubs. Moreover, significant changes. The biggest reason for the name change is reportedly to end the confusion to the extent of HBO's involvement. For a while now, the executives have felt like customers have been relating all of the content on the streaming service with the HBO brand. This is simply not true, since most of the content is by the subsidiaries of WBD. In a much larger context, all of these recent changes to HBO Max are because of the company's goal to gain $1 billion in earnings by streaming, and to make it a profitable venture by 2025. Since its acquisition, WBD has been through many massive changes. Under their new CEO, David Zaslav, the streaming service has recently gone through a vast purge that ended up with many films and shows being removed from the service's library. Previously, Zaslav said that their entire library was up on the streaming service, but they weren't making any profit off of it despite the entirety of it being up there. Despite so much content, much of it wasn't being watched, or most people weren't subscribing to HBO Max for that specific content. Lastly, a significant loss for Warner Bros. They still have a massive library despite taking that content off, and now they're going to try to sell it non-exclusively to someone else. The CEO also confirmed that the company lost almost $3 billion by 2021, after spending nearly $7 billion on more projects. Over the last year, the CEO has been scrapping projects left and right, such as Batgirl, firing off employees and executives from WBD to save money. The exact numbers for the financial impact are still uncertain, but previous reports tell us that the company's stock has fallen by 50% at the start of this year. Warner Bros. Discovery's rebranded version of the streaming service is said to come out in the spring of 2023. Steven Spielberg speaks out against Warner Bros. HBO Max strategy. Coming up is an interview with the New York Times. Award-winning filmmaker Steven Spielberg has come out against the Warner Bros.-owned streaming service, HBO Max, specifically about its content release strategy in 2020. This criticism started soon after the streaming service went ahead with numerous cancellations and restructurings that were highly controversial. This first started because of the aftermath of its merger with Warner Bros. Discovery. At the end of 2020, the company announced that it would be working on and releasing a few theatrical projects for the upcoming year that'll be out on the HBO Max platform. Viewers would be able to stream all of them on day one as a response to the adverse effects on the industry that the COVID pandemic left. In a recent interview with the New York Times, the director said a few words about the issue, despite the interview mainly focusing on his upcoming autobiographical piece called The Fabelmans. Spielberg's upcoming film is a spun-up tale from his own life. The film industry's tycoon has often made his distaste over the decision known for the past couple of years. He said that because of the pandemic, there was a massive opportunity for streaming platforms in which they could raise their audiences to numbers never seen before, as they broke several records. But on a darker note, they've also been the cause of many incredible filmmakers, including some of the director's friends, being thrown under the bus, since their films were never given a theatrical release in a severely unceremonious way, moving on to a decline in theatrical releases. According to the director, they were just given the money, but the films were only shown on streaming services, which in this case was on HBO Max. Some of the cases he mentioned started to change a lot in the industry. Because of the boom in viewership for streaming platforms, older audiences were probably relieved that they wouldn't have to accidentally step or sit on sticky popcorn again, at least according to the director. The director, on the other hand, thinks that for the very same older audiences, once they set foot into a theater, the magic of watching a piece of art with a bunch of strangers in a social setting turns into a tonic for them. Spielberg is certainly not alone in condemning actions by such platforms. Another film veteran, Christopher Nolan, shares the same concerns. As we've seen with his latest project, Oppenheimer, the director was just as critical of the decision from the start, though we all agree that Steven Spielberg, who's undoubtedly one of the most, if not the most, influential directors who've left a mark on on sci-fi, is more than just qualified to be voicing such complaints. Despite all of this, the director has been sure to clarify that he would someday be open to making a movie for a streaming platform, but only if everything was done on his terms. While the golden standard in the industry is still a theatrical release, streaming has also made a specific place in it and brings about a bunch of advantages. Additionally, more from the interview. Not only does it allow for some incredibly unique projects to finally get a chance at a larger audience, but in some cases, it can help films with lower budgets focus more on quality rather than distribution problems. In the same interview, the director was asked, since the story for his upcoming film, The Fabelmans, is something he's lived through, what made him finally decide to work on it. To this, the director said he didn't think about getting serious and saying it loud on the big screen until the pandemic first hit. As some of his kids came in from the East Coast to visit him, they ended up living in their old rooms, and his wife got their family back for a moment. While it was bizarre not to have to go to work, directing a film is much more of a social occupation, and he's used to interacting with people daily. Spielberg had a lot of trouble getting used to the Zoom world and had a lot of free time on his hands, to the point that he would just get in his car and drive all over Los Angeles, all the way from the Pacific Coast Highway to the Calabasas to near 29 Palms, for hours. Because of this, he had much more time to think about what was happening in the world. He then thought to himself, what's the one story he needs to get out, and would be mad at himself for not working on. Every time he'd come to the same answer, the story about his early years from 7 to 18. Finally, more on The Fabelmans. The film is centered around a young boy called Sammy Fabelman, who's grown up in Arizona after the Second World War and has to deal with a secret that could ruin his entire family. The character does this by devoting himself to the world of cinematography. His father, Bert Fabelman, isn't the most supportive of his son's love for the arts, especially since he is a computer engineer. On the other hand, his mother, Mitzi, is a concert pianist and fully supports her son's artistic visions. The film is wholly dedicated to Spielberg's parents' memory. The distributors of the film, Universal Pictures, recently dropped a new trailer for The Fabelmans. The trailer shows off the different kinds of relationships in the family that are full of personal drama. Not just that, but Sammy's love for cinema is shown with some incredible visuals, such as a scene showing him locked in a dark room and his hands clasped together, imitating a screen. Meanwhile, we see the fire between Bert and Mitzi flame on full display as the couple grapples with their son's interest in film. Another major film highlight is their problems as Jewish members of society. There's even a scene that shows Sammy's locker with a disgusting comment about Jewish people. All of it comes together to form a deep and personal take on the director's childhood experiences. While it won't be without any conflict, it still has a sense of warmth to it, hinting that, much like the director, Sammy is going to go on to fulfill his dream and much more. That's a wrap for this video. What are your thoughts about the topic? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one.